The Strangers Chapter 2 is directed by Rennie Harlan and stars Madeline Petch, I'm sorry if I can't get her name right, and among others. And this is the sequel to last year's The Strangers Chapter 1 and is part of the trilogy that Rennie Harlan has set up that is more or less, I guess, at this point, pretty much a reboot of The Strangers from 2008. And in this story, it follows right directly after the events of the first movie where the lead, Maya, is having to survive from the events from the killers in the last movie in the hospital, and then pretty much it's going into a whole 90 minutes of her running around from the killers and stuff. And that's pretty much the plot, along with getting into some other things that deal with some little snippets of what we come to learn from the killers, and also throwing in some other stuff that deals with her paranoia about other characters that she comes across. Now, here's some backstory. Now, if you see my review of the last movie, Strangers Chapter 1, I talked about how I do admire the early works that Rennie Harlan did from Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Deep Blue Sea, and a lot of other stuff. And not going to go into too much detail again, but I really loved the first Strangers from 2008. And while I haven't seen Pray at Night, I still want to check it out one of these days. But with the first Chapter 1 from last year, I was actually kind of curious what it was going to play out because I had never, didn't expect them to make any more because I just thought that we were probably going to be getting like the beginning, like an origin story, like a prequel. But then it seems like with this point, with them trying to do like a trilogy that was going to slowly learn more about the killers and stuff. On paper, I was kind of interested to see what they were going to do with Chapter 1 and seeing how it was playing out. But the execution really fell flat for me in the last movie. And going to this one, I didn't really have much expectations for it because seeing how the last movie really took a deep down with rehashing stuff that was previously done better in the first movie, in the 2008 Strangers, and on top of that also really diving away with not really doing a lot of stuff that's very interesting, especially with the two leads in the first one. My expectations were not high with this, and so after upon seeing it, I can say that as much as I didn't like the first chapter, this one was even worse. This to me is everything that you don't do with when it comes to sequels, where you're more or less trying to essentially take away the essence of what your main franchise is supposed to really be about. Because the movie is called The Strangers, and I'll get into this later, but it really makes you really kind of wonder, like, why even really call it that title, and why even really like go with this really lazy and very not really thought put out type of backstory when we finally get to reveal some things about the actual killers. And so yeah, this was definitely quite a frustrating this was a lot worse than I thought going into it. And so if I'm going to get into any kind of pros, I will say that the main girl, Madeline, I'm sure she's done really good work, especially in that show Riverdale, and I'd really love to see her do a lot better work outside of these movies because it shows that she definitely has potential, and it's not really necessarily her fault because she brings her performance to a level of what she can, but the material around her just does not work, especially the way that her character is written, and a lot of the stuff that's surrounding her overall, but I think that her performance still overall works, and she's trying her best, but unfortunately the movie really like sucks so bad to where not even she can really hold it. Even, she definitely deserves better. But to get into any kind of other pros, I will say that there's some decent atmosphere that Rennie Harlan does set up, especially when we get to a sequence that involves with rain at one point during a chase sequence. And there is some snippets of gore here and there that I don't mind so much, especially when we see at the beginning that they kind of throw in. But that's really it. This is now where I'm going to get into some cons, and there may be some minor spoilers in this. So there's some stuff that if you're really curious about the film, you can skip ahead or watch or turn the video. You can either skip ahead or if you go see the film and then come back here because there's going to be probably some minor things I'm going to get into that really knock the movie down to a T, and so. Where do I start? With the movie trying to get itself set up where it's trying to be following directly after the first film, at first it seemed like it was kind of going into this type of Halloween 2 type of knockoff where she's having to run around the hospital, and while there is a cool shot that shows that when the killers are actually kind of look like stalking her throughout, you see like the one with the sack over its head, like walking in and looking around her stuff. It on the way that it was actually shot was interesting, and the way it was actually shot was fine. And I see what the movie was really trying to go with it, with trying to build tension at first. And there was some suspense. There was at least a suspenseful moment during this sequence. So I'll give at least the hospital sequence at least some minor credit for it. But unfortunately, what really ruins a lot of the tension is that a lot of it is typical jump scares. Much like the last film and a lot of films you see with a lot of slashers nowadays, or just horror movies in general, when you hear like very loud noises and stuff, or when you see things that come out of nowhere, when you get the typical jump scares is what really ruins the tension this time, where the killer just pop up and you just hear the loud noise. And that's what that was actually frustrating me. And I don't really complain this often. I don't really, especially when it comes to slashers, that much. But anytime that I was hearing the loud noises of the killers like coming through, it was actually annoying me more because of all the way that it was poorly done with some of the chase sequences. And it's on repeat throughout, because after it leaves the hospital, it starts to really seem like it's going to go into something, different territory, where you're starting to see more of these other characters that come in with that Maya is like trying to, like, she's having some paranoia about. And they do that in the trailer too, where she's kind of thinking that one of the characters that she comes across is like could possibly be in on it, or one of the killers. But unfortunately, this movie has a tendency of not really being subtle. Anytime that she comes across any type of character, they seem like they're talking in that very type of creepy voice or something that takes any type of mystery or any kind of suspense out of it, because you're already leading to something that just seems really unethical. And it's like these characters don't even have regular conversations. On top of that, and this is something I had with the first film, is like, I don't really see what the point is. They keep coming back to this diner half the time, because I'm not going to go into detail, but we do get to learn a little bit more about one of the characters that's in the diner, so to speak. But anytime that we see Richard Brake and the other cop, it really seems like when they keep coming back there, like they really don't have much of a purpose in the story. Every time they keep coming back to these cops, it's like, why even have those in the film? You're not going to do anything. And I know that's probably the intention they're going to probably set up in the next film and everything. But even still, it's like, it seems like it's a waste of time, because the movie just has a problem with trying to move forward with doing anything with all the pieces that were set up in the first film with certain characters that you're introduced. And so, with that being said, they also introduced some other newer characters along the way that Maya comes across, and it also feels like it's getting very. And it feels very rinse and repeat with the locations, because you'll see the characters at the diner or at the gas station and then back in the woods, and then she even ends up conveniently going to the same house. I'm like, man, this movie is such on a really, you could probably tell it was on it was trying to save time and everything, because they keep going back to the same locations back and forth, and it was making me feel like this really bored, like, oh, come on, change it up already, And also, when it gets to the middle half, it almost seems like it doesn't even become a Strangers movie anymore, where, I shit you not, it actually seems like it becomes like a ripoff of The Revenant, because instead of her getting attacked by a bear, she gets attacked by a a boar. And there's something that they do kind of lead into later on in the movie that's having to do with, like, I guess you could say, was something of a flashback that they show where the boar has a purpose with. But even then, I'll get into that later, even that I have really big issues with, because it also takes away the essence. It also really ruins a lot of the mystery surrounding the actual killers. But before I get into that, the movie is just a lot of rinse repeat, where she's running in the woods, has a stop, gets encountered with the killers, keeps running. And every time that she thinks she's safe, she just has to keep going from location to location. That's really all this movie does, just keeps going flip-flopping back and forth, her going to different scenes and stuff. And it's like she's never safe. And also, what ruins the fact that this movie, I can tell, is not having like any type of tension, is the fact that they already confirmed this is part of a trilogy, so there is no suspense of what she's going to get herself into, because you know that she's going to pretty much live. And on top of that, one of the things I also had a big issue with, and this is something that the first movie didn't really, and this is something I kind of wish that they would really do a lot better, since they were able to show at the beginning, was some of the kills they also come across are off screen, where you don't see much of the blood. And I know that there's that scene that goes that what you don't see is a lot scarier, but in this instance, it doesn't work on that either, because even when we see the aftermath of stuff, while it could be, you know, that there's some blood in that you actually see on there, it still takes away anything that's also prevalent as a slasher film. Now, my biggest issue for me personally is the fact that this movie has the tendency of actually going into a backstory that reveals of a certain thing that of why the masked figures are saying certain lines from the first film, and also the purpose of what they're doing. And when they do this reveal, this flashback that reveals that one of the killers, when two of the killers when they were kids were playing around and stuff, and there was a boy that was interested in this girl, and he was playing with this girl, and he knocks on this shed or anything that she's in, and he just says, "Is Tamara there?" And she comes out and kisses him, and then the girl that was watching him do that goes to it and does the same thing. Only we reveal in this flashback that she takes a rock and starts beating the crap out of the girl, and I guess that's the reason why she ends up saying Tamara. Is Tamara there? I'm not gonna lie, like, as much as it could be really, you know, kind of disturbing, and especially if it involving with kids and stuff, I've checked myself out to where, unfortunately, it was too little too late trying to actually come across as a type of reveal that I really gave a fuck about. Like, any type of momentum or any type of impact that the movie was trying to go for, I got myself checked out to where I was so, like, not interested, and it makes me really not wanting to really care for the third movie coming out. So I will be, I mean, when it comes out, I'll still check out the third one, but at this point, this movie has really really lost me to where it ends up also literally ending on it to be continued to set itself up for a trilogy, and for that, it's like, okay, well, you just did it again, and it felt like we didn't really learn anything that what we didn't know in the first film, other than just adding some little snippets here. And so this really could have been, like, if you would have trimmed out probably a lot of the filler, like the scenes where she's just running around and just doing other stuff, and maybe trimmed it down to like maybe 10, 15 minutes, you really could have added this to just the end of the first film and just made this like an epilogue. Or not, well, I'm sorry, not an epilogue, because that would be the end of the story. You could have just tackled this on to the first film, just have that as a actual to be continued. I think by doing that, they probably would have made it more smarter and have it to where it's still going to continue the story and then finally get answers and stuff. Because turning it into a trilogy really seems like it's not amounting to anything. And so there's more going into detail, but that's just really the gist of it. This movie was just everything wrong of what I feel like this franchise just should have deserved a lot better with. And with that, this is going to be one of my worst of the year, and I'm giving it a flat line in the Film Freaks meter. And so, for those of you who have also seen The Strangers Chapter 2 and also the other films, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.